Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
Look, we need to have a real conversation about what went wrong with the Mets last season because everyone's so focused on losing Pete Alonso and Brandon Nimmo that they're forgetting why this team actually collapsed. The starting pitching completely fell apart down the stretch, and that's the real problem that needs to be addressed this offseason. Think about it. How many games did you watch where Sean Manaea melted down, where Corianga was completely invisible in the second half? David Peterson had two absolutely terrible months to end the season. Game after game, we watched starting pitchers get pulled in the third or fourth inning because they couldn't even make it to the fifth. That's not sustainable if you want to compete for a championship. The folks over at SNY just gave their takes on who the Mets should target, and we need to break this down because there's some interesting names being thrown around. But before we get into that, let's be real about something. There's no Max Fried in this free agent class. The elite, top-tier ace that everyone wants just isn't available right now. You could look ahead to 2027, but nobody cares about 2027 when you've got Juan Soto on your roster right now expecting to win. We didn't spend all that money on Soto just to tell him we're in a retool year. That's not how this works. David Stearns keeps saying how comfortable and optimistic he is with his plans, which honestly pisses everyone off because we want to see action, not just hear about how confident he is. But maybe there's a method to this madness that we're not seeing yet. So let's talk about the names SNY brought up. First one is Ranger Suarez, and I've got to be honest, I'm not sold on this at all. Yeah, John Harper and others have mentioned him multiple times, and people love that he eats innings and takes the ball every fifth day. The argument is you're taking him away from the Phillies, which weakens a division rival. That's nice and all, but here's my problem with it. Suarez is a number 3 starter, maybe a 2A at best. Where does that actually get you? You're trying to compete with the Phillies, with the Dodgers, with a Braves team that just got better. Adding a mid-rotation guy doesn't move the needle enough. We need a legitimate ace at the top of the rotation, a Zack Wheeler type pitcher, and Suarez isn't that. Too many people get wrapped up in just adding quality, but quality doesn't win championships. Superstars do. Look at the teams that win. The Dodgers have Yamamoto, Blake Snell, Tyler Glasnow. The Yankees have Garrett Cole and Aaron Judge. You need elite talent at the top, not just a bunch of solid middle rotation guys. Adding starters who are going to give you a high 3 or low 4 ERA is fine for depth, but that's not how you build a World Series contender. And here's another concern with Suarez. He's a soft tosser who's already 30 years old, and all indications are he's going to get a 5 or 6 year deal. What happens when he's 33, 34 years old, throwing 89, 90 miles per hour? That velocity drop-off is going to happen, and suddenly you're stuck with an aging pitcher on a long-term contract. I've seen this movie before, and it doesn't end well. Now, SNY also mentioned some trade targets, and this is where it gets more interesting. Tarik Skubal is obviously the dream scenario, but let's be realistic. I'm not giving up what it's going to take to get him. The Tigers are going to want a prospect like Nolan McLean, and if you can somehow avoid that, you're still giving up guys like Jonah Tong, Brandon Sproat, Jack Wenninger, and Jonathan Santucci. That's your 2, 3, 4, and 5 ranked pitching prospects in the entire organization. I'm not doing that for 1 year of Skubal, especially when he's got Scott Barras as his agent. He's going to free agency next year and taking the highest offer, and I don't think getting him here for 1 season is going to convince him to stay. I'll just wait and compete for him in free agency rather than gut the farm system. But Freddy Peralta, now we're talking. He's not going to cost nearly as much as Skubal, and he could be a legitimate game changer at the top of the rotation. Joe Ryan from the Twins is another name that intrigues me. He's under control for a couple more years and has the potential to be an ace-level pitcher. Put him on a contending team like the Mets, and I think he could be even better than what he's shown in Minnesota. If you're asking me, I'd much rather go after Peralta or Ryan than spend big money on Ranger Suarez. Getting someone like Suarez plus either Ryan or Peralta, now that's a rotation upgrade that actually makes sense. But I don't know if David Stearns is willing to do that. Everything we've seen suggests he's working within a very specific box of moves he's comfortable with. The question is whether he's willing to give up the prospects needed for a Peralta or Ryan, or whether he's willing to give the years and money required for a Suarez. My biggest fear is that Stearns is trying to win every single trade, which doesn't always work. Sometimes you have to overpay slightly to get the player you need. Now let's talk about Zack Allen, because I am so tired of hearing this name. People keep bringing him up like he's some consistent, reliable option, and I need to set the record straight with actual numbers. Let's look at his last 4 years of ERAs: 2.54 in 2022, 3.47 in 2023, 3.65 in 2024, and 4.83 last year. He has consistently gotten worse every single season. His ERA has gone up nearly 2.5 runs over 4 years. He made 33 starts last year with an ERA pushing 5. That's who you want to give long-term money to? A guy entering his age 30 season who's trending in completely the wrong direction? Zack Allen is the definition of a reclamation project, and I'm done with those. How many times do we have to learn this lesson? We need a frontline starter, and Allen is the exact opposite of that. His numbers show clear regression, not progression. Some team is going to overpay him because he throws a lot of innings, but it shouldn't be the Mets. The reality is this rotation needs an ace. If the Mets want to compete in October, if they want to make that Juan Soto signing worth it, they need to add a legitimate number one starter, not a collection of 3s and 4s, not reclamation projects. An actual ace who can go toe-to-toe with the best pitchers on other contending teams. And honestly, I'm not convinced Stearns is willing to make that move. Look at every transaction he's made this offseason. You lose Alonso and replace him with Polana, a lesser player. You lose Edwin Diaz and bring in Devin Williams, who has major question marks. It's starting to feel like we're shopping at the discount store instead of going after premium talent. I hate to be negative, but the pattern is concerning. David Stearns talks about being comfortable and optimistic, but the moves don't match the rhetoric. We're not seeing the aggressive approach that a team with Juan Soto should be taking. We're seeing careful, measured moves that prioritize value over impact. The starting pitching failed this team last season. That's not an opinion, it's a fact. If you don't address it properly this offseason, you're wasting Juan Soto's prime years, and Aaron Judge's window across town is going to look more appealing to free agents. The Mets need to stop being cute and go get the pitcher they actually need, not the ones that fit some predetermined budget or timeline. So that's where I stand. Ranger Suarez alone isn't enough. Zack Allen is a hard pass. Freddy Peralta or Joe Ryan in a trade. Now we're talking. But ultimately, this team needs to aim higher than middle rotation arms if they want to compete with the Dodgers, Phillies, and Braves. The margin for error in this division is razor thin, and mediocre starting pitching isn't going to cut it.